Welcome to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. I'm Richie. I'm going to be your host. Throughout the series, we're going to talk to a range of different people who will give you tools and tips to help manage your recovery. The podcast itself is being brought to you by Epic Restart Foundation, who are a national charity who support people to rebuild a positive life after gambling harm. So this week on the Recovery Toolkit podcast, we've got Neil Wilson. Neil, thanks for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and why you're in recovery, as in like from what?
Good to be here as well, Richie. So thanks for inviting us along. I'm in recovery for alcohol and drugs. Drinking drugs wasn't poison. Been in recovery for just over 8 years now. It was the 6th of January 2016 when I stopped drinking. The reason for my addiction comes from a lot of the sort of childhood trauma. And the only way I got out of being a kid was with the football.
Yeah.
You know, I used to kick the football against the wall morning, noon and night, and that just took us out of my life and the way my life was when I was a child. And then, you know, that moved on, and I ended up playing football professionally down at Blackpool, and then I got released, and then I came out of football, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Didn't have a clue, because I was just focused on being a footballer, and I thought that was going to be my life. It's awful to say, but I thought it was going to be page 3, girls, fast cars, and loads of money. You know, like in what you see these lads on, and I thought that was going to be my life, and I came back and I had nothing.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, I found solace in drinking drugs, cocaine being my poison.
Yeah.
And that was my escape.
Yeah.
You know, from that trauma.
Just on that, would you say that football was the first addiction?
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt, because that ball at my feet, even kicking it against the wall, was just me in the ball, and there was nobody else in the world. And whether it was for 5 minutes or 5 hours, I would just continually kick that football. You know, and then when I went into games, the competitive side of it, for 90 minutes, I was free. You know, I was free as a bird, and I didn't have a care in the world. But as soon as that final whistle went, the problems came back. You know, so it was great to have that escape, but I didn't have escape afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, for that 90 minutes, I was free.
Yeah, and I think this is an important thing. I think it was very similar to me. Football was the first escape for me. We've got very similar journeys as well. But what people didn't understand was that football was still an escape. Underneath that, there was still a little broken kid. You know, there was still something else going on that wasn't being addressed. But to the outside world, Richie's just signed a contract or wherever. You know, Neil's just signed a contract. Oh, he's doing really well in life. He's successful. You know, but actually underneath that is pain, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And I think as I got a little bit older with the football, I'm saying 90 minutes was escape. Sometimes it was 20 because of me willingness to win, I'm going to say, but maybe my aggression was a little bit too much that even the football would get us to the point where, you know, I wanted to kick lumps out of people and continually getting sent off and become a bit of a liability on the pitch. Well, I did. I was a proper liability on the pitch, you know, and so even my escape from everything else that was going on had become an issue because I was getting sent off.
Yeah.
So I wasn't spending 90 minutes on a pitch, you know. I was spending half an hour, 60 minutes getting sent off, then missing 3-4 weeks through suspension, and it happens. I had a lot of injuries, done both my ACLs, you know, both my cruciate ligaments. When I was 37, I had both my knees replaced. So I've had full knee replacements when I was 37. And it's that escape was not an escape anymore through the injuries and through getting sent off, and a reputation of getting sent off as well.
Yeah, and I think from there, obviously, you mentioned injuries, football. That come to an end when you were 20. Is that right?
I was 20. Yeah, when that came to an end, when I professionally. But obviously I went on to play Northern League and Sunday morning, and I can remember playing on a Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. People wouldn't dream of doing something like that now, but 25 years ago, that's what we did. We played on a Saturday, then you played on a Sunday morning, and then you would play with mates on a Sunday afternoon. So it was a massive part of my life, and it was a huge part of my life. Even when I stopped playing, while I had the injuries, I went into management.
Yeah.
And again, that was an escape, because it was just, as soon as I get anything to do with football, it's just as soon as I cross that line, it's just, let's just say, the red mist.
Yeah.
The red mist, and it wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because I was embarrassed by my behaviour. So I'm not a bad person, but everybody looking at the football side of things, just seeing this lunatic running on the pitch and fighting with people and shouting a ball at referees, and that wasn't an escape anymore either.
Yeah.
So it was just it had more detrimental to my mental health than anything else, because I was embarrassed about the things that I'd done, but I couldn't control that temper either.
Yeah. And when you come out of professional football at 20,
Yeah.
that big escape, that that dream, that childhood dream, on top of the other things that you'd been through in childhood, that all compounds, doesn't it? And then is that where drinking drugs came in and sort of give you that new
Yes.
release?
Yeah, definitely it was. It was, when I came back, because when I signed for Blackpool, I think I was 14. So I thought, I'm going to stick in at school. I don't need any GCSEs. So, I sat in the exams where I didn't actually do anything. So I came out with no qualifications whatsoever. Came back home at the age of 20 thinking, shit, what am I going to do with my life? What am I, what's next? And I just didn't have a clue what I was going to do. Fortunately, football got us a job at Nissan, which in manufacturing and building cars. And if I signed for Nissan football team, I got a job. So that gives a half decent job in the area for somebody with no qualifications, one of the better paid jobs. But that wasn't me. It was horrendous. You're just like a robot. You stood by yourself doing the same thing day in, day out, and it was just soul destroying. Like as me looking back now as an addict, I need to be active. I need to be doing something. I need to be challenging myself and challenging. I've got to be on the move. I've got to be doing something. Not the same thing day in, day out, because it's just something I can't cope with. I need a distraction. I need something in my life for to distract us from everything that's went on and going on. Yeah.
And at that point was obviously going out on a weekend turned into a bit more than just going out on a weekend.
It did. I think like I'm saying, like most people, I think this day and age it's socially acceptable, that people are taking cocaine and alcohol, and if 25 years ago when I used to go in a bar, you used to get searched, they wouldn't dream of doing it now because there had no one in the bars. But 25 years ago it was just a recreational thing on a Saturday or on a Sunday, and it wasn't a big use that I had, but it didn't take long for that to become an escape. So tried it, didn't quite like it, tried it again, was all right, tried it again, thought it was great, and then it just sort of spiraled out of control, in a pretty short space of time. It spiraled out of control and got myself in a bit of debt to drugs. I had to try to pay that money off somehow, which I did, and I've done some things that I'm not proud of. That led us down the wrong path. I've ended up in prison. When I was 21, I ended up in prison, and that was tough to go to prison. The shame it brought upon me and my family, and it was hard. But that's where my addiction took us. It took us down that line where I had to do certain things, and for to get the money together. I wasn't like burgling houses or robbing, old grannies, anything like that. But it was more criminal activity.
Yeah.
So it was difficult at the age of 21. Year after playing football, thinking that what my life was going to become, and then ended up in prison. which was a big culture shock.
Yeah.
You know, being trapped again inside somewhere.
And then from there, that spiraled a little bit through your 20s, and eventually you hit rock bottom and found recovery. Tell us a little bit about what happened to get you into recovery,
Right.
and then what was the first step that you took in recovery?
I mean, my journey through me addiction, like I say, started off as recreational. Then it went into a more than a recreational use of, if you know, just on a Saturday night, it turned into a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. Then it turned into a Monday club and a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's 4 days. And then before you know it...
Thursday.
Aye, Thursday. Before I know it, it was starting to, like I say, spiral out of control, where it was pretty much an everyday use.
Yeah.
That wasn't until probably me mid to late 20s that I started that journey of pretty much everyday use. And that, again, spiraled out of control. It got to the point where in Christmas 2015, it got to the point where I didn't remember Christmas at all. Yeah. Because I was literally on it every single day. And when I look back, I was there in spirit, there in body as a cardboard cutout at Christmas for the family and the kids, but I wasn't there in spirit. You know, I wasn't there at all. My head was just totally high as a kite and off my tits, and I was in a really, really dark place. But during that time, you know, I'd been working at Nissan. I'd left Nissan. My wife at the time, she had a good job, and I wasn't working. She told us I had to go and get a job, which I wasn't very happy about. So I liked going to the club and playing snooker during the day while she was at work and sniffing cocaine and having a few pints. And then she's going to have to go and get a job, so I went and got a job in a call centre just to keep her happy. Absolutely hated it. Didn't think this was for me at all. So I started off on the phone selling gas and electricity, you know, over the phone. And then the competitive side got the better of us. When I seen people sort of ringing the bell and getting the numbers on the board and everybody giving them a cheer, you know, not quite as bad as Wolf of Wall Street where you're throwing dwarfs and that, but you know, the call centre environment was very much, you know, a little bit Americanized, where it's a little bit over the top when people got a sale. But I thrived off that because it was a competition, you know, and that become an addiction because I wanted to be the best. And I worked really, really hard, and I become the best in the call centre. And then from the call centre, I was getting frustrated because it was easy for someone to put the phone down on us. So I thought, I'm going to go and knock on doors. I'd seen people knocking on doors for Telewest, for Sky, for all these different companies, and I thought, I'm going to go and knock on doors because it's harder for someone to shut the door in your face than what it is to put the phone down. Went to start knocking on doors, and I worked for Telewest. Wasn't long before I become the best at Telewest, and I was doing really, really well. Left Telewest because I would made a bit of money on a house sale. Bought a business in the centre of Newcastle, which was a men's tire shop. A lot of cash went through the business, which ended up a lot of cash went up my nose because, you know, it was cash. It wasn't
because you could,
but yeah, because I could, and it was easy to hide my addiction at that point. And then in 2008, the crash happened, which had a massive detrimental effect on the business. But when I look back, I blamed the crash of 2008 on the business not being successful and losing the business. But it wasn't. It was because I was stripping it bare of money. You know, and it took us a long time to admit that. But I stripped it bare of money to feed me addiction. When the business was going, I decided to go knocking on doors again. And it was for Scottish and Southern Energy, and I was just knocking on doors, and I was making £1,000 a week. And then I thought, I said to my boss one day, I said, I haven't had a good day today, will you watch us on the doors and see what I'm doing wrong? He went, I cannot watch you, you're a better salesman than me. I was like, why are you getting paid for looking after me. If you can't teach us anything new, if you can't help us in any way, what's the point of managing us? Well, I take you to work and I give you what you need, your leaflets and what have you. So I thought, no, I'm going to go for your job, or I want to be a area sales manager. And I went for a promotion, and I got the area sales manager. And then I moved up again. And then I ended up at Scottish Power as a director at Scottish Power, worked my way up through the ladder there. So I started off knocking on doors, worked my way all the way up. And the more successful I become, the more disposable income I had. So then I convinced myself that it was okay to have 2 or 3 grams of cocaine on a night time because I'm working hard. We're not going without bread and food and water and everything else and putting dinner on the table. I'm looking after my family. I'm paying the mortgage. I'm paying all my bills. So why not? And I convinced myself that was okay for to do that and sit in the house when everybody had gone to bed.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot in that, isn't there? Very high functioning addict.
Yeah.
I think, but actually, it served you, didn't it? It was another addiction in itself, work, and that's why you got self-worth, because you were good at it. You liked people going, "Oh, Neil's the best at that." That gives you a buzz. That feeds the ego. That takes you to a new place. But then also it just masks it, doesn't it? It enables you to.
It does. It enables you to mask it. But what it done for me, it was like how much is enough, and nothing was ever enough. Nothing was ever enough. Doesn't matter how successful I was, I wanted to be better. So what car I had, I want to have a better one. Doesn't matter what I done. Nothing was ever enough. It was just one more sale or one more call centre or one more member of staff or one more, I'd buy a different car, and it was just nothing was ever enough. So it was just feeding an addiction to mask all my feelings and exactly what I was going through, and it was just masking it continually. So you're right, I was addicted to work. My work addiction fed me alcohol and cocaine addiction. But one thing I will say, I never missed a day's work through my addiction of being drunk or high as a kite or whatever. Probably because I didn't have anybody to answer to as well. Because I could go in the office, I had my own office, I could shut the door, I could put a sign on my door saying "Do not disturb." I could still work at my pace, I can get rid of the drink and the hangover, then make my excuses and leave early and have a couple of pints on the way home, and that was my journey during that time. It was a routine, and it was a bad routine. And I don't know how now, looking back at that journey that I went on for probably 10 years of work with drink and drugs or and my addiction, in working 22 hours a day and functioning on a couple of hours sleep, driving all around the country. Sometimes I used to get to London and think, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't know how I survived that. How I didn't kill myself or kill somebody else when I was driving, I don't know. And I really look back at that and think, someone's either been looking after us, looking over us, which, I've got my own beliefs, not necessarily God, but a higher power than me. And I look back at it, and I think somebody was definitely looking over us, looking out for us, because I don't know how I survived that period. I really don't know how I survived that period. Richie.
And you got through that. Through that, but then you ended up Castle Craig.
Yeah. So as I was saying before, it was Christmas 2015 was the lowest point. It was the point where I was putting out lines of cocaine, and I was crying when I was taking it because I didn't want to take it, but the impulse and the urges and the addiction, I had to have it.
Yeah,
I had to have it, and it was the same. I never ever dry lined. I always had to have a drink first. I never ever dry lined. And as soon as I had a drink, it was just an instant hit. Need cocaine, so I could never have a drink. So I would have been all right if I wasn't an alcoholic, because then I wouldn't have the drugs. But that went hand in hand. It was like salt and pepper or fish and chips. And that Christmas was a bad Christmas for me, because I was at my lowest. To the outside world, I was successful. nice house, nice cars, everything looked great, but I was just surrounded by people, but the loneliest man in the world.
Yeah.
I felt so alone. And it got to the point, and it was the 4th of January, coming down off the Christmas. I took an overdose, and I woke up the next morning, which was the 5th of January, and I didn't know whether I was alive or dead. I was in this sort of what I call the no man land, like when I used to wake up off a heavy session, and you don't quite know if you're awake or where you are or what's going on. And I remember I got up, I had a shower, and I went into work, and I shut my door, and I put the sign on saying "Do not disturb," and I sat there for about 2 hours crying, thinking, I've tried to commit suicide, I've tried to take my own life, and now, like, what am I going to do? This can't continue. I'm fed up. And it was a bit of a eureka moment that I knew at that moment that was my rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I got on the internet, and I started researching, and I spoke to Betty Ford Clinic, I spoke to different places, but Castle Craig, for me, hit all the right spots, because everybody at Castle Craig has either been in they're in recovery. So the doctors, the nurses, the counsellors, the cleaners, the gardeners, everybody, including the people that own Castle Craig, they've all been in recovery. So for me, I was able to pull the wool over people's eyes as an addict, and I could wrap them up and fool them, no problem at all. But you can't fool another alcoholic or another addict, because we're very much alike in the way that we think. Yeah. So we know, you and I talk, and we know if some bullshit's coming out or not. Or when you talk to somebody else, that you can't say someone else is an addict, but when they're convincing that they're not an addict, you're sitting there thinking, fucking hell, you can
see the behaviours, can't you?
You
You
can,
can see the things that they're doing and the mannerisms and all that stuff. And it's not, like you say, it's not for us to say. And this was something I really struggled with when I first got in recovery, because I wanted to save the world. I wanted to pull everybody out of the water, and that was something really, really difficult for me to deal with. And then my supervisor at the time just said to us, "Richie, all you can ever do is plant a seed. All you can ever do is plant a seed. And if they get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. But you kind of pull everyone out of the water." And that changed my perception a little bit. And I now have a saying where, be the lighthouse, not the tugboat.
Yeah.
So shine the light, and hopefully people will follow you, but don't try and waste your energy on pulling people out of the water.
Aye, it's a good analogy. It is. I've done the same over the years. I've tried to help, and you get too sometimes involved with their recovery, and if people aren't ready, they're not ready. Yeah. They've got to want it, And I think that's with my recovery being in Castle Craig, and being totally honest in there about my addiction and things that I've done. I wanted to be sober. Yeah. I wanted to be clean. I didn't want to drink or take drugs anymore. AA was a huge part of my early recovery, and I'm very grateful to AA. I don't have a lot to do with AA now, because I think AA is, again, one of them tools in your toolbox that you can have. I went to regular meetings in the first probably 3 to 4 years. That was a big part in my life, going to the meetings. But now it's not part of my life, because I've got them tools. I don't feel as though I need to go to AA meetings. And I always say to people that, when they're about AA and the fellowship, AA is not going to save your life. It's going to help. Yeah. Without a doubt, it's going to help. There's people there like-minded of you. But if you haven't got that desire to stop, and you haven't got that willpower to stop, and for to have the courage to say no, and have that determination to move out of a situation that you put you under threat or risk of using, you're always going to struggle. Yeah. And I think one of my greatest tools that I use now still is, if I'm in an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable place around alcohol or drugs, I take myself out of that situation. And I might appear rude to some people, But my sobriety is worth more to me than me leaving someone's wedding halfway through because I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Because I can see everybody down in drinks, and I can see people going to the toilets for a line of cocaine or whatever it may be. You know, yes, it's not ideal, but at the same time, my recovery and my sobriety keeps me alive.
Yeah.
If I drink again, I die.
I think that's important for people to hear as well. Like, you're telling yourself that, oh, these people are probably going to notice that I've gone or I've left the wedding, and this is really important to me, and I don't care if they think bad of me. The truth is, nobody even realises you're gone half the time, do they? Because they're so obsessed with themselves,
of course,
and they're so focused on themselves. They're the stories we tell ourselves, though, isn't it?
It is.
That, oh, I can't leave there, or I can't leave there, or I still need to be around them people. I still need to be in these social circles. But actually, we don't, do we? We need to change that. We need to have the courage to be able to look after ourselves, to protect our sobriety, to protect our recovery journey, so that actually we can go where we need to be.
Definitely. And
I think environment's important, though, isn't it?
It is. You know, in my early recovery again, it took us a while because there were so many triggers when I walked into a pub, and you know, the smell of the little disinfectant things in the toilets set us off straight away, because I was always in the toilet.
The association.
You know, association and the smell of money. Because I normally had a note up my nose, so the smell of money, I didn't carry cash. And there's just little things like that. There's so many little triggers, especially in your early recovery, that you get that, your heart's beating, your heart's racing, and you feel like, fuck, I could do this, I could do that. And, you know, it's about learning, especially in your early recovery, it's about learning to cope with those type of triggers to get out of that situation, you know, and I'd done that, you know, as best I could to keep myself out of them situations. It hasn't been an easy road this last 8 years. I'm not going to say that recovery is easy, and I don't think anybody can honestly say that recovery is easy. You know, but over the years I've learned to cope in my own way with alcohol and drugs, and being, like I say, it's very much widespread now. It's sort of socially acceptable, and the amount everybody seems to be on it now. You know, especially as a recovered addict, you can see people. You know, you can see it's just in your face all the time, and so accessible for everybody as well. It is. And sometimes it's difficult, but again, I take myself out in them situations if I'm not comfortable. Yeah,
I think something you said there is really important. Is it's not easy. It's not easy, is it? You know, we've took away the escape, and we've took away the substances, or we've took away the behaviours that have served us for a purpose for a while. But then we've got to live life, haven't we? And sometimes that's really difficult, isn't it? And I know a lot about your story, even in recovery. You've had some challenges.
Yeah.
How have you managed with how have you dealt with some of them challenges that you've been thrown your way, Neil?
I think the main challenge is you know, Richie, on the 8th of December 2021, I got the worst phone call a parent could get. My 21-year-old son wasn't breathing. I got a phone call up his girlfriend, and I live in Portugal. And I knew that second that my son was dead. And I rang 3 people to get to the house as quick as possible. One of my friends was there, and he's a fireman, so he's trained. He got there within about 4 or 5 minutes. And I just remember him saying it was... because it's Willa. So he's saying, Willa, he's grey and he's cold. I'll have to go because I've got to start working on him. And that tore my whole world apart. Because losing my son at 21 years of age, when, you know, not even a quarter of a way through his life, was just the most traumatic, horrendous thing anybody could go through. Losing a child is not the way of life. And it's not the order of life. I still feel bitter and angry. You know, it's still very early. It's, you know, not even 2.5 years since he passed away, but it doesn't seem like yesterday since I've seen him, but it seems like an eternity as well. And I think a lot of people thought I would fall off the wagon. They thought I would, because something as traumatic as losing your child. I can understand why someone would turn back to drinking drugs for to cope with that, but I couldn't do that. You know, I've got the other 2 kids that are still here, and I need to be there for them. I had a lot of support from my wife, you know, at the time, and all the way through that, and that kept us grounded. But one thing I didn't do was bury my head in the sand and stay in bed every day. I got up, I faced the world, I faced each day as it comes, and I was determined to take one step in front, put one step in front of the other, and a bit like, you know, I've got a tattoo on there, one day at a time. That's all I do, I take one day at a time. You know, sometimes it hits us like a tidal wave, and it kills us. That Ellis has passed and he's gone. And other days I'm able to cope. You know, sometimes I can sit and talk about it and I'm fine. Other times I mention his name and I'm just gone. But if I picked up a drink or a drug now, I would follow him to the grave. And I can't do that. I've got to move forward. I have to stay here for Mary Grace and Herbie, and I have to stay here for my wife and for my family. And you know, I've got to make sure that I keep myself strong.
How do you do that, Neil? Obviously, that's very traumatic, you know. And you know, I've been around your life a long time now, and I was around at that time as well, and it was awful, wasn't it? Like, it really was. There's no other way you can describe it. It was a really, really dark time.
Yeah.
But like you say, you didn't lapse, you didn't relapse.
Yeah.
And one day at a time you get through it. How do you get through something like that? What have you found in your toolbox now? What are the things in there now that are really helping you get through day at a time?
The thought of Mary Grace and Herbie being without me, and if I turned back to drinking drugs and ended up dying through it, I would never want them to think, well, you're not good enough for me dad to stick around for, you know, like, and that plays heavily on my mind, because I want to be there for my kids, because my kids are struggling like I am, you know, they're young, and they've got the whole lives ahead of them, and I want to be there to try to protect them and help them and guide them, and that's something that's very important to us, Richie, and the day of Ellis's funeral is actually the 6th of January, which is the same day as my sobriety date, and I picked it on that day, so that every year I can turn around on my sobriety date, and also it would have been the day that Ellis's funeral, and say, there's another year I've done for your son, there's another year I've completed. It's a very bittersweet day, you know, because you've got, there's 4 key dates that are tough. Obviously his birthday, the day he passed away, my birthday, I find harder than his, because I'm a year older, he's still 21, and I really struggle on my birthday. And then also I've got the day of his funeral as well, and then my 4 dates are really, really, really difficult. But again, how do I get through it? It's probably just sheer determination, you know, sheer determination and willpower, and making sure I keep myself active, making sure that I keep myself, you know, I train a lot. I've took up boxing, you know, so that's become a big part of my life, probably an addiction with boxing, but that's helped us, enabled us to find that little hiding space as well, and just block everything out. So I do feel bad, I'll get my gloves on, I'll go on the punch bag for an hour, or, you know, I'll go to the gym and I'll do a run, I'll do a circuit, I'll do something just to occupy my mind, and try my best to get through it, you know. And some days are harder than others, but, you know, if it doesn't rain all the time, eventually the sun comes out, you know. There's a big dark cloud hanging over us, and it will do forever. I would long think to live with it, with Ellis's passing. But, you know, time's not a great healer when it comes to something like this, but coping with it, hopefully will become a little bit easier. It's hard to accept, really hard to accept, But again, you know, the AA prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I can't change that, you know, but I can determine my future,
Yeah.
and that is by staying clean and sober. You know, I have that choice. I can go down the path and I'll end up dead, or I can go down the path and I can live.
Yeah.
And I choose the path to live, you know.
I think that's really important, that you've got a choice, haven't you? That's your choice.
Yeah.
You know, and like you say, you've got other things to live for, you know, yourself, your family, that they're really important to you and you want to be around for them. Boxing, you mentioned, you know, I know you're getting in the ring quite a bit at the minute.
I am.
What does that give you?
Oh, do you know what it is? I've never been a big follower of boxing, but one of my really, really good friends is a heavyweight professional boxer, and I started doing some training with him a few years ago, and, you know, not boxing, but the actual training side of it, not like the sparring or anything. And then it was a year after Ellis passed away, and I went to watch a local unlicensed show, and I was looking at them, and I was like, I'd chin him, like, and I was like, I'd beat him. And I said, look, I want to fight. Why do you want to fight? And it just dawned on us that I wanted to feel physical pain instead of emotional pain, you know, and I wanted to feel alive, like, by getting punched in the face. And that might sound absolutely crazy, but then again, we are addicts, so we're a bit nuts anyway. But I wanted to feel physical pain as opposed to emotional pain. And the training has given us focus. The training has given us discipline. And at the end of the training, I've got a goal, you know. So like, I've got to fight at the end of that. And I'm 46. I'm coming up 47. I took boxing up when I was 45, and that's a crazy time to take up boxing. But I had a fight last Saturday. I've got a fight in 3 weeks' time. Then I've got a fight in 4 weeks after that. And whether I win or lose, it's just about getting in there and having that little escape. And you know, if I get punched in the face, it's physical
Temporary.
pain. Temporary. It's a temporary fix.
Yeah.
It is. You know, the first time I stepped in the ring, and I'd been doing pads and I'd been doing footwork and I'd been doing all the stuff for the coaching, I walked in the ring and walked towards the lad, and he just punched us straight in the face and broke my nose. And I could taste the blood, and I thought, I fucking love this. I want more of this, you know, because that's a physical pain. Because emotional pain,
Making you be present as well, wasn't it? It was making you be in that moment. And like you say, outside of that ring, outside of that training, you know, you can be in your own head. Yeah. That's quite a dangerous place to be, isn't it?
That's sometimes, an awful place to be sometimes. Definitely for someone in recovery, whether you're a month, a year, or 10 years. Sometimes it's the worst place in the world. You know, our minds, and you know, it's not with drinking, it's with thinking. You know, and that's definitely played a big part in the last couple of years, and how I've treated people and how I've reacted to certain things. And you know, it hasn't been easy for us, and I've took it out on the wrong people at times. But again, you try to learn by your mistakes. You can't change your past, but you can certainly change your future. So it's every day is still a learning curve, you know. It really is. It is. I learn something new about my recovery every day.
Yeah, and I think that's the joy of recovery, is it's a lifelong learning, isn't it? It's lifelong learning, and I'm a firm believer, like, self-awareness and understanding and self-compassion are so important for people in recovery, because the more self-awareness you have, the more work you realise you've got to do. Yeah. And when you know that there's work to do, you can do it. Yeah. It's when you're oblivious to the fact that, you know, anger still shows up or frustration still shows up, that you don't really do anything about it and you don't address your issues. Yeah. And what I really admire about you, Neil, is that you've been through a hell of a journey, not just in your past, but in your recovery as well. Yeah. And you still continue to inspire people. You still continue to offer support. You still continue to be there for others, you know. And I think that's a testament to yourself and your character, that you can do that for people, you know. And I know you offer a lot of support to other people, you know. And I think you need to sometimes just reflect on that and give yourself a pat on the back about that journey. I don't look at it like that, Richie. You know, it's just somebody's passing on a little bit of wisdom or a little bit of me tools, and I've got my toolkit to help somebody. You know, I don't
shout it from the rooftops or do anything. But you're right. I would put somebody else first and help them if they were in need, without a doubt. And I like to pass on knowledge, because of what gets through me a day. Because like any addiction, you only ever sober or gamble free for one day. The next day you might gamble, so it's about getting through today. Yeah. And just to very quickly say, like, early recovery, I worried so much about what am I going to do when Ellis turns 18 and he has his first pint. I'm not going to be able to have a pint with him. What's going to happen when Ellis, Mary Grace, Herbie get married? I'm not going to be able to have a toast with them. I was worried so much about the future, and worried so much about what I was missing out on by not having this and not doing this and not doing that. That it was becoming, it was hard in the early days because I was thinking too far ahead.
Yeah.
And
it steals you of the present, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It steals you of the moment. It steals you of experiencing what's actually going on in front of us because we live too far in the future.
Oh, totally, yeah. And that's where I don't live in the future now. I take each day as it comes, and I live my life day by day and how I feel on that any given day. Some days are good, some days are bad, some days I struggle, some days I don't. So, and somebody said to us once, it's all right to feel all right now. Because when I was feeling happy and content and things were going right, I convinced myself that something was going to go wrong, because it normally did, but it was normally through me doing my addiction. Now, when since losing Ellis, when I'm feeling happiness, I feel guilty, because I'm getting on with my life, and he's passed away, and that's hard as well for to sort of let myself go and be happy, but it's something that I'm going to learn to accept and learn to do, because life does go on. I'm going to say, unfortunately, life goes on, but life does go on. Can't do anything about it, so I've got to make the most of what I have got. And I've got two beautiful children that are still here, and a beautiful boy that's looking after us and looking over us. And I'm covered in tattoos, and my favourite tattoo is I've got, when he passed away, I got them to do like a handprint. And I got his handprint put on my shoulder, so he's always got his hand on my shoulder, and he's always looking over us, and I feel his presence, and I believe he's around us, and I believe he's content and he's happy, so I do. We believe that he's content. Happy's probably I don't know if that's the right word considering he's passed away, but I think he's at peace. I feel he's at peace.
Yeah, and I think that's really important that's the belief that you have, isn't it? That's what you need to settle. That's what you need to be content as well, and that's perfectly normal to have that vision and have that belief. And I think that's important for lots of people for lots of different reasons. In recovery is about find a belief that serves you.
Yeah.
Because in the past we've always looked for why we weren't good enough, why this, what the filled with fear, all of them different things. But actually, can we reframe something? Can we find a belief? Can we find a way of making sense?
Yeah.
Making sense of what's gone on so that actually I can live today.
Yeah.
Because that's all we've got, isn't it?
Of course, it is. That's all we've got. It is.
Good stuff, Neil. I want to thank you very much for your time. It's been a very meaningful conversation, but also thanks for your vulnerability. For sitting there and sharing some of the stuff you've shared, hopefully gives people out there hope and inspiration that, even if it does get difficult, you can get through it, and it gives them a little bit of chance for the future.
Without a doubt, I think every addict or alcoholic, whatever their poison may be, they think they're the worst out there. There's always someone worse than what we've been through. Yeah. There's definitely is. So, making that first step and doing something for to get you into recovery is probably the hardest step to make, but it'll be the best step you make. But you've got to want it. Yeah. You've got to really want it, and you've got to really want to stay clean, sober, addiction free. You've got to really want it. There's plenty of tools out there, and there's plenty of help, but you've got to really want it yourself. That's my belief on it.
Totally. Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, Neil, thanks for coming on.
Thanks
for your friendship.
Yeah.
Thanks for being there for me. And appreciate it.
Amazing, Richie. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. If you took something positive from it, then why not subscribe? If you or somebody you know has been suffering gambling-related harm, why not head over to our website where you can join our community? The link is in the show notes.